Bit about portion sizes. So this week, I'm going to go through a couple of talks. Today, we're going to be talking a little bit about understanding portion sizes and how we can make sure that we feel full when we eat, that we don't feel like we have to overeat or sort of stuff ourselves, or feel like that every time that we eat that we never feel full. So a lot of times when people struggle with being able to go and lose weight or change their body aesthetically, is that the dietary protocols that they go on, they never feel full or never feel satisfied, or they always feel like they're craving something. So I want to be able to address some common tips that we can be able to go and to be able to go and help with being able to go and feel full with the portion sizes that we utilize. So I wanted to go through and just a little bit of background, a little bit of health and wellness background, a little physiology here, is that we have a hormone that we actually go and that our liver produces every time that we eat. It's called cholecystokinin. And so when we eat a meal, our liver releases this hormone. Depending on what we eat and how much we eat, kind of varies how much of it releases, but it goes up into our brains, and our brain says, hey, we're full now, you can stop eating. So one of the biggest things that we sort of miss a lot of times from our diet, sort of the traditional dieting methods, is the intake of the proper amounts of fat in our diet. So a lot of times this hormone, this satiety hormone, the hormone that tells us, hey, stop eating, isn't released until we get appropriate amounts of fat at a particular meal. So this is developed as sort of a survival mechanism. So I don't know if you know this, but back when we didn't have a McDonald's on every corner, we wanted to be able to make sure that we got a lot of varied amounts of nutrients that our bodies needed to be able to go and survive long periods of time without food. So our hunter-gatherer ancestors would need to be able to go and make sure that they could intake enough calories and be able to store enough calories and be able to store enough nutrients that allowed our body to make sure that they could function for long periods of time. Because sometimes you could go for bouts of feast and famine. So one of the things that we need is large amounts of what are called fat-soluble vitamins. So these are vitamins A, the animal form of vitamin A, retinol specifically, vitamin D, vitamin E, and also what's called the vitamin K2. So if you've ever heard of vitamin K2 is the messenger hormone or nutrient that is necessary to take calcium out of the bloodstream and calcium and other different nutrients and put it back into our bones. So a lot of the issues with calcification of arteries can be driven and traced back to this particular nutrient deficiency. So one of the most important things that we'd be able to go and have at a meal that has these varied types of nutrients in it, vitamin A, vitamin D, E, and K2, are pasture-raised sources of animal food. So one of the things that a lot of people miss, and a lot of people think, like, I've got protein at my meal, and I've got my chicken breast, or I've got my turkey burger, or I've got my lean piece of fish. And a lot of times those don't go and usually have the type of nutrients that we need. So during our commercially raised sources of animal products that we normally get as part of our daily diet, the standard American diet, those nutrients don't exactly go and are present in the animal food that we tend to eat. So it's only in animal products that end up going and being raised out on pasture, where you have access to, the animal has access to a lot of sunlight, and free range. So, a chicken may be pecking the ground for more bugs as a part of its diet rather than eating more as many staple grains. A cow has fresh green grass usually as part of its diet for the consistent year that are parts of the year where the weather allows it. This allows for a different nutrient profile in the animal products that we intake. So, with that being said, if you're having pasture-raised animal food, you don't need a lot of it in order to go and be able to feel full. So being able to go, and if I were to go and take my hand, and you can use this as sort of like the palm of your hand, and that's about 3 to 5 ounces at a meal, depending on how big your hand is. You don't necessarily need much more of that. If you feel like you eat that as part of your meal and we're still not being able to go and feel full, there may be various different nutrient deficiencies that we may be dealing with. If you're dealing with, for example, craving for like chips or other different forms of salty food, one of the things you want to make sure that we go and have before we go and eat is making sure that you have, a significant amount of water about 15 minutes before you start your meal. That can make sure that your body's fully hydrated. Your body's craving for extra food can sometimes be masked as a craving for actual thirst. So you can feel like maybe I'm hungry, but your body's actually thirsty. If we're craving things like chocolate, again, that can possibly be issue with deficiency of magnesium or our body being overstressed. Anytime that we're under a lot of different forms of stress, and I can't think of a stressor that we might have experienced in the last 24 hours, depending on, you may have elation, or you may have, or you may feel really depressed today, depending on the not thing that wasn't stressful yesterday. But if you're dealing with a lot of stress, you end up leaching a lot of magnesium out of your body. So the cravings for things like chocolate when we are stressed, again, can be drawn from a possible magnesium deficiency. And you can use things like Epsom salt baths and other different forms of supplementation to be able to help bring that back in. And also being able to manage the stress that you're under to be able to go and lower those particular cravings. Those are what I find are the biggest issues when it comes to being able to go and people managing their portion sizes. We end up going and having too much to eat because our body is still craving some form of nutrient. We don't end up having a good balance of protein to carbohydrates to fats at a particular meal. A lot of people, when they intake fats, they end up intaking the wrong types of these type of oil-based chemically processed fats like canola oil, corn oil, soybean oil, things of that nature, and a lot of fried foods. They get a lot of their fat intake from that, and that ends up not really getting the stimulated satiety response that we need. And also, we're usually so under stress that we end up going and needing various different other nutrients, and we just keep eating and eating and eating and eating and our body's kind of hoping that we end up getting one of the nutrients that we end up needing, sort of by happenstance, because our bodies aren't evolved to be able to tell the difference between which food is going to have which nutrient. Flashback 10,000 years, the foods that we were able to go and eat had a lot more nutrients, or the foods that we were able to get, because we were eating usually pasture-raised forms of animal food, or animals caught in the wild, and foods that didn't obviously have a lot of chemical processing to them. So we have to be able to go and realize that when we go and we're having struggle with these portion sizes, making sure that we are intaking fresh pasture-raised sources of animal food. So with that, I'm going to go and also just include a few different options. If you live in the area that I live, if you're we're doing this on Facebook and Instagram here today. I live in the Metro Detroit area. If you also live in the Metro Detroit area, a couple of different great places where you can get pasture-raised sources of animal food if you can't find them at your store. Family Farms Cooperative is one of the first ones I got here in the Detroit area when I started going and getting pasture-raised animal foods. Middleton Farms Cooperative is also a great source. John Henry's, you can go to johnhenrys.net, I believe is their website. And you can also, if you want to go and look at some other different options, you can go to localharvest.org and be able to go and find various different resources for finding these different types of foods in your area. So I hope that was able to help answer some of your questions on how we can be able to go and help control portion sizes and be able to feel full from a meal. Our next live, hopefully we'll be able to go and talk a little bit more about how we can be able to go and change up our diet. We can make sure that we don't overload ourselves on the same food, going through the Paul Chek rotation diet. So I hope to be able to talk a little bit about that on Friday. So if you guys have any questions, please don't hesitate to let us know in the comments below. Thank you so much for joining us, and I look forward to seeing you again soon.